And Thursday afternoon is here. Hello there, good afternoon and welcome to The Pulse. We're coming to you live from our studios here in Accra. We are on your digital terrestrial TV because we are free to air. You can get us live on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 144. We are JoyNews, independent, fearless and credible journalism. Coming up this afternoon, the Economic and Organized Crime Organization makes a shocking disclosure that it is becoming difficult for state prosecutors to sustain charges of fraud leveled against Chief Executive Officer of defunct gold dealership firm Men's Gold. More reactions as this is beginning to agitate aggrieved customers as they vow to fight to the very end.
Relevant laws defining offenses. Sometimes you believe it, you know somebody has committed an offense, but you can't have any relevant law to support your case prosecuted. And like I said earlier, nothing is a crime unless there's an enactment making it.
And we're still keeping our eyes on the economy. President Akufo-Addo looks up to God for economic salvation as he affirms that despite the challenges facing the country, his government will not relent in efforts to improve the education, health, security and other needs of the people.
That the fortunes of Ghana under the presidency of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo will be restored. The battle is the Lord's.
Meanwhile, pressure group Arise Ghana has waded into this mounting pressure on the president to dismiss the finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta. We'll hear from the group as to why they're making this renewed calls. And former President John Dramani Mahama is punching holes once more into government's free senior high school policy as he argues that challenges confronting government's flagship project is beyond repair.
Of the lives of the children on campus. Recently, you've seen videos of secondary school students dipping their hands into hot banku to fetch their share because the feeding is inadequate.
Stay with us for these and more stories here on The Pulse. I am blessed Sogah. The Pulse, as always, is brought to you by Global Communities Digni Lu, affordable, safe sanitation. Remember, we're also streaming live on YouTube and all of our social media handles is at JoyNews on TV. Thanks for choosing us. Please stay for details. And this afternoon, Chief Executive of defunct gold dealership firm Nana Mensah may walk away a free man after fresh revelations indicate that the state prosecutors are finding it difficult to sustain charges leveled against the businessman. Nam1, as is popularly referred to, was arrested in 2019 on 14 separate charges, including of defrauding by false pretenses, money laundering. He's also been accused of carrying on deposit-taking business without the necessary licenses. But this is contrary to Section 6.1 of the Bank Specialized Deposit-Taking Institutions Act of 2016, Act 930. Thousands of people, as we speak, who lost their deposits after the scandal tell JoyNews that they're still reeling under the effects of the alleged Ponzi scheme. Well, my colleague Joseph Akable has been giving us a total recall of the Men's Gold saga nearly 3 years on.
Nearly killed myself that day. I nearly killed myself. Even the day I went to Men's Gold, I heard it on radio, but I could say it's not true. So I myself went to their head office at Jolu. So as somebody told me the thing, that, hey, now one thing I just fell down, and then some of my friends put water on me before I get up. Nearly killed myself. It happens to where I stay. I told you already that it happened to where I stay. I nearly hung myself. I did it because my wife and the children came to saw me that I was dead, tight and rope to kill myself, because that is my life. That is everything to me. I don't have anything. My family, there is nothing. So I'm the one that I struggle to help the family.
39-year-old Stephen Abuaje is now suicidal. His suffering is the result of bad investment. He put all of his eggs in the Men's Gold basket in the hopes of making a fortune, but everything went wrong. His life went from optimism to frustration to current despair. In this edition of Total Recall, I engaged 3 persons including Stephen, whose lives have been forever altered by a desire to invest in a gold dealership. Men's Gold was an investment that was too good to be true. Investors were assured of 7 to 10% monthly returns of investments. So people invested with their life saving and even secured loans and invested in a men's gold business. Investors were ready and willing to defend their investment company, but they later changed into protesters desperate for their money. In July 2019, state prosecutors filed charges including defrauding by false pretenses against CEO of the defunct company, Nana Appiah Mensah, aka Nam1. This was after he had returned from the United Arab Emirates, where he had been in custody for months.
To assist us make full recovery of the amount owed Men's Gold by Horizon Royal Diamond in Dubai. As an act of good faith, we are willing to engage the Attorney General's office on the best possible way for them to aid Men's Gold by employing international law and diplomatic relations to ensure we achieve this objective. 2, to unfreeze our companies and my personal bank account and asset for us to utilize these as vehicles to get productive in order to meet our liabilities, owed to our customers and some business associates in our bid to resolve our liabilities immediately.
Nearly 3 years on, monies invested by the thousands remain outstanding. His prosecution has not even reached the level of a single witness testifying. The case has seen more than 15 adjournments with prosecutors constantly asking for more. Stephen Abuaji's hope keeps deteriorating. He's one person whose life will never be the same.
A friend told me about it, that this what has come to the system, that thing is very fine, so I should put myself into it to help me. Even the car that is using at the workplace is the same Men's Gold money, so I should try my best and do like 6 months and see what will happen. And then I go to my bank. I invested at Commercial and then Access Bank. So I went there to withdraw all my money there, and then I withdrew to go and buy the gold chips to Men's Gold.
I mean, were you not worried about whether this is a company that you could trust, whether it is registered? Were you not worried about all those issues? I'm somebody that I used to do more investigations, but what touches my heart that I put my money is the time that the guy was helping GFA and then he was conniving with the president. You know, I see everything was genuinely. That's the motive purpose that I invested in Men's Gold. You mean when you saw photographs of him doing stuff with the GFA, the presidency?
Then the presidency, I see everything was genuine. So that's the reason I invested in it.
He invested about 106,000 cedis together with his wife. In January 2020, Stephen was part of a number of customers who pitched camp at the residence of CEO of the company, Nam1. The police fired shots to disperse the crowd.
I go there because they told us we are going there to retrieve the money. So when we are coming, you should take your documents along.
Who told you that?
We have a coalition. So the coalition decided that we should go there to take our money because we've heard that it's paying people underground. So maybe we, as a group, if you go there and then our numbers are okay a bit, then maybe they can even see us through to give us something small. So we decided to go there. We didn't go there alone. Kumasi and Takwa also brought their buses along, and then we go to the place. That's the reason we went there.
Stephen's life changed for good.
We heard about police coming. So I decided to run from the place to another place so that the police cannot arrest me and then add me to the people. So as I'm running, and then I fell on the rough road. So as soon as I fell, I wake up and then the police grab me and then they put us in the car. So as we are going, I feel heavy headache on my head. So as I came out, I decided to buy medicine myself and then take it. So as I take the medicine, still I always receive severe pains. So if sometimes I'm walking on the side, I need to put cap on the head. So there's a time I see I was sitting down at town, so I see if the person is coming to pass on my face or something, I see the person has like he has burned something. I say, what is happening to me? So I decided to go to hospital, and then the doctor confirmed that I'm having an eye problem on the eye because of the fall that I fall. There is a problem, so I need to do something about it early. And then the surgery came in, and then I couldn't make money because there is no money anywhere for me to go and find and do it. And that I'm still there waiting for something better to come and then see what God will do me.
So now as I'm talking to you, you cannot see me?
No, I cannot see anything. I don't see anything.
And if you had access to your over 100,000 that you invested, you would not have been in this condition?
No. That one there. Even the doctor promises me a lot that as soon as they've seen the sickness that is happening, even if the money is there, like they continue doing the surgery quick, it's a chance that I will get the eye back again. But as for the delaying and stuff, even that last week that I went there, he was telling me the delaying and stuff, I should pray to God that it's 50-50. Anything better can happen. So we should pray to God and then get the money and come. So that is my prayers every day. I'm seeing that people will see me through, and then the eye will be seeing again. If even the eye is there, I will not follow this money, because I will start something again, because I'm a forceful person. I always force myself to get something for my family. So that is how.
He's unimpressed with the pace of the state's prosecution, but hopes for some good news.
I will tell the government that we apologize to him a lot, because we didn't know. Some of us, we didn't know what happened. But if the government says this is what they are doing and then so stuff, they should try their best, and then they see that it's gaining our money that they've put into their investment. And then you, the government, too, I've heard that the guy helped the government a lot. He even sponsored our GFA. That thing even ginger some of us to invest in the guy this thing. So the government should help us so that we will get, even if they give us something small, we can even manage it to start life again. But for us, for not hear anything from the government, it's very, very sad. It's very, very sad. So we plead the government that they should help us. Even if my money is there, and then get something small, I know what maybe I can do with my money and then regain back again. So that is our prayer, that he should help us. True, we apologize to him that he should help us.
Keep losing hope day in and day out, because we have cried to the government, we have done all our best. But one way or the other, I just have to thank our leaders, our chairman Isaac, Fred and Co.
I meet another investor, Isaac Tay, who is in his 30s. He invested 350,000 cedis into the gold dealership. He still keeps copies of his contract with the firm in the event of a future refund.
And that's my colleague Joseph Akable giving us a total recall on the men's gold saga. There's an update for you, because speaking on economic crimes and its effect on the nation at a forum organized by the S&T Professional Club, the Executive Director of Economic and Organized Crime Organization, Mami Atiwa Adodankwa, explains the difficulty in sustaining the charges leveled against them. One.
Relevant laws defining offenses. Sometimes you believe it, you know somebody has committed an offense, but you can't have any relevant law to support your case to prosecute. And like I said earlier, nothing is a crime unless there's an enactment making it a crime. So, example is men's gold case. Which law, which act did he break? And it's becoming difficult even prosecuting that case, because the law that will define the law, the offense, and also provide the elements, it's difficult to find. So the relevant law defining absence of that is also making prosecution difficult. One of the difficult cases to prosecute or to investigate is economic or financial crime, because it involves a lot of paperwork. And you need to prove the cases not because of what you think, because you believe the truth is that the person has committed offense. But the fact is that you need to provide evidence. And if you can't find something, documents are not there, and you cannot even trace, the person is on retirement, and you cannot trace anything, it will even affect prosecution processes. And when people get away with crimes, the crime will continue. So one of the things that we'll talk about is the digitalization that will support prosecution. Because if you can't provide evidence, you can't do anything. Some of them invested their whole life. And after the collapse, they had nothing. And they thought dying was better than living and not having anything. So these are some of the financial, emotional stress. I know one police officer who collected his end of service benefit and then invested everything in men's good, and the person lost everything. Now he has become a drunkard, even though he wasn't like that, because he doesn't understand how he will live without that money, because he was investing to get the return to support during his time of pension, but now he doesn't have it. So he's having a whole lot of things on some of these things. So because people don't do due diligence, they hear any returns on investment and then they run to go for it. We need to educate people. And Yoko is out educating people at the marketplaces, at the churches, at any opportunity that we get, any platform.
Well, so that's where we are today, and there's a lot of reaction greeting this. So let's expand the conversation on this. Joining me via Zoom is Justice Abdullahi, law lecturer at the University of Professional Studies, UPSA. Fred Forsing is the PRO for the aggrieved customers of Men's Gold. And we also do have Richard Kumado, who's a fraud prevention expert, joining us on this conversation. Let me start off with you in studio. Fred, thanks for joining us. And I'm sure that by now you are saddened by this news that we're getting from Yoko. It appears that we're getting at least some idea of what the prosecutors may do about the NAM1 case. Earlier on this year, you claim that you did not see any commitment on the part of the law enforcement agencies to go after NAM1. It's becoming a reality after the revelations, isn't it?
Yes, blessed. I think I am so sad, but not surprised. In fact, listening to the director of Yoko, Mame Yatiwa, I think the whole country should be collapsed. This is a useless state. I mean, entire country.
Respectfully, you're on national television, so I'd urge you to be
hopeless.
Right.
Then maybe let me replace the word useless with hopeless. It's a hopeless state. You understand? Because who took the matter to court in the first place? Was there a gun on the head of the state to go to court? So after almost 4 years, you come back and tell me that I sent my case to court, believing that I have a case. And after 3-4 years, you tell us that you are not getting evidence to prosecute. The entire nation should be collapsed because it's a hopeless state. So we have killed over 183 people for nothing.
And I mean, to be fair, I need to put out the fact that this is not the Attorney General. It's the Attorney General that obviously is prosecuting this case. And having Yoko and its boss just make a pronouncement that prosecutors are having difficulty cannot be equated to the position of the Attorney General on this matter.
Take it from me today that the woman is speaking reality. Just a week ago, we sent a team from our end to visit her office and to the Attorney General office. And the same information was given, even though we knew earlier on that the Attorney General, I think on this very platform, this is where I sat.
Right.
And I said that the state cannot, and I even explained the meaning of the word cannot and said the state is not able to prosecute NAM1. That is why in our own common sense wisdom, 2019, we wrote to the Attorney General and told him that this matter, going for criminal prosecution is not the issue. Let's sit down, round table, bring NAM1, bring Parliament, the state should send somebody and have a tripartite committee look into the issues and see how we can retrieve the locked up investment and pay. Now what is happening is that, and the people of Ghana, listen to me and listen very well. The lost investment in men's gold is not the debt of the Republic of Ghana. Because you cannot tell me that after 3-4 years of wasting our time, killing people, you are not telling us that you do not have evidence to prosecute.
Some would say
the state prosecutor, the director of public prosecution, had told us that
right.
They also lack information, evidence to prosecute. So even gave our team the number that if we have any evidence, we should bring. But our issue is that we haven't taken any issue to court. We do not have anything to do with the court. If you go through your archives, there are several statements we have issued, even this year, 2022, and saying that the court case is a hopeless one. It is not going to yield anything beneficial to us, and now the cat is let out of the bag.
And Fred, it's not just about the court case, but many had warned, and some experts had warned earlier, that looking at your case and what's happened to the NAM1 situation, this is just a simple case of an investment gone wrong. So leave it to God. Posterity will judge all of us. But
we will not do the confession of the finance minister.
You are not.
Neither are we going to do the confession of the president.
That's the accusation against your group.
You see, Ghana, that's why we have laws. The Act 929 is very clear. That is the first one. Number two, the state itself, before the collapse of men's gold, they did an investigation. And in that investigation, the conclusion was that there was the need by the state to protect the monies paid by these customers. The SEC boss did not heed to this advice. The finance minister did not heed to this advice. The Bank of Ghana governor did not even listen to their own investigation, and they went ahead and collapsed the company. So in 2019, we came to the scene fully fortified with this document and with this information, and we sounded the thing that charge our locked up investment on the consolidated fund because of the provisions in the law and their own acts of negligence. They did not listen to us. Do you know what they do? The government is thinking that they are very smart. So they quickly went to the court so that the customers and the public, unsuspecting public, will all shift their attention to the court, and the real culprit, which is the government, will be sitting there walking innocent.
Fair here, that you can't call the government the culprit in this matter.
I'm saying the government
you
is
simply engaging in
an
investment that on countless occasions you were warned about. And in fact, the Bank of Ghana had issued an official notice, yet you went on to do your investment.
Listen, Blessed, that argument that we were warned is a porous one. And I feel shy when I hear learned people using it, that we were warned. This whole government, the entire Ghana was warned by the IMF prior to 2016. Even as we speak, they were warned, but they are still committing offense and using our taxpayers' money to pay. Are they more human beings than us? So that argument is porous. And in our lecture, we say cover it because it is great. They shouldn't even say it again. You warn us, so because you warn us, when you came that this building, you have warned that this building is about to collapse. So you came with your bulldozer to collapse the building, and because you have warned us, you find Blessed and Fred here, then you collapse the building on us, then you go away and say that because you warned us. That's a hopeless situation.
Okay, there are arguments about the law here, so let me hear from you, Justice Abdullahi, on this matter about the provisions and what the law actually says about organized crime. This is the chief scribe of Yoko giving us a sense of what may happen to the NAM1 case. I guess that's the end, because if the prosecutors are finding it difficult, evidence may not come forth and the case may not even move on. So what's the law saying about all of this? Kindly unmute for me, Justice, so I could hear the points you're making.
Thank you. I believe you can hear me now.
Loud and clear.
Thank you. So I think the comment by Mamitua is a rather unfortunate one, to the extent that I do not expect the state represented by her office to be making such comments, particularly the cases in court, as she rightly pointed out, because it clearly undermines the prosecution going on, unless they've withdrawn the prosecution of the matter. This kind of comment clearly would undermine every attempt by the prosecutor or the prosecution to sustain a conviction. And it naturally would influence the outcome of the case. And so I at least expected such a comment to be made in public. Now, having said that, I think it is also very difficult and strange to convince me that for the kind of conduct that led to the investigation and the prosecution of Namwan, one would say that there are no sufficient evidence or sufficient laws to prosecute the person.
Yeah.
Indeed, what are the evidence that are needed? Their complaints have been lodged by several people. A lot of them have submitted their contracts that they had with the companies that were represented Namwan or that were set up by Namwan. Now, these persons exist. The victims are out there. The victims are willing to give evidence. They have their contracts, they have their receipts of payment, and I believe every other thing, evidence in the transaction that they entered into with these companies. And the companies are represented by directors. You don't know the role that Namwan actually played, but I do believe, based on the information out there, that he's either the beneficial owner or was the chief executive or something close to that. Now, any of these roles, if he played it or was a member or the owner or the beneficiary, the beneficial owner of the company, I think all of these put together are sufficient to put him before and indeed I believe those were some of the reasons that were relied on in putting him before the court in the first place. So I do not see or understand which part of the insufficient evidence or laws that are not available in order to sustain conviction. Of course, conviction can only be pronounced upon by the court.
Right.
Of course, based on the evidence provided by the prosecution.
But then you are a lawyer. You're quite conversant with the processes in court, and that question will always stare in the face as to how long this case has traveled in court. The fact that we're going 3 years, on, and for this case to be running 3 years on, for many experts, that's the end of the case. We don't necessarily have enough evidence, and that's why government and by extension the prosecution appears to be having difficulties.
Exactly the point I'm making, that it is an unsustainable argument to make that you do not have sufficient evidence when you have more than hundreds of thousands of persons that transacted with the companies involved. How do you not have evidence? Are all those people not existing, or their documents were not taken at the time, or copies were not taken at the time they were giving their statement before the police or YOCO or any other institution that conducted the investigation? Which part of these do not exist? And if these are not sufficient, I am asking myself a lot of questions. What is it that they really need that they are not getting? Because if you say that you don't have enough evidence, that is also not enough for us to be able to assist in the prosecution of the matter.
Yeah, but in a case where you have, for instance, a contractual agreement between customers of Men's Gold and this defunct gold dealership firm that we are talking about, it's quite evident that when it comes to criminal prosecution, there will be difficulty in proving, for instance, the intent to commit fraud. And fraud appears to be that big charge which the prosecution is relying on.
Unless we are discussing the present case before the court, or if there's no case before the court at this moment, I think that this particular one, if it is the Namwan case, shouldn't be too difficult. If, for instance, we all know the Bank of Ghana, or at least the regulated environment, has interest rate going for between 10 to 20%. and someone is giving you an interest rate of about 120% per annum, I think that alone is sufficient enough to conclude that there is some element intent to defraud you.
Why so?
Assuming that's where you want to go with this argument.
Yeah,
because
but why
it's clearly
so?
not sustainable.
It's a simple case of transactions, right? I promise you return. I promise you return on investment. It's as simple as that. No matter the rate involved, all you need is a return on your investment. Government at this point has shut down Men's Gold, making it legally impossible for that company to go ahead and deal in its business just to guarantee that return on investment. That's where the difficulty is.
Well, it's difficult to rely on government intervention as a basis for a defense in a case where you've been charged with fraud. You cannot say simply that government having this that you are committing an offense, and so intervening to stop continuous perpetration of that offense should be a basis as a defense sustainable for that matter to relieve you of whatever criminal charges that you've been inflicted with, charged with. I don't think that is sustainable.
Interesting points you're making there. Let me bring in Richard Kumado. You're a fraud prevention expert. How difficult or otherwise is it trying to find and gather relevant information in prosecuting such a case like the one we have on our hands now, the NAM1 case? It appears that it's becoming a challenge for Mamitiwa Dodankwa. Richard, if you can hear me, I'm just asking about, what processes you go through as experts in dealing with such a case. Anyway, I will try and raise Richard Kumado back, but you've heard from the lawyer also supporting your claims that government would have to do what it can to prosecute the matter. But for some, the posture of government, we've seen that since the beginning of this case. We had the information minister at the time, and now's government position on the matter that you are not going to be giving a rebate from the consolidated fund. It's been laid out clearly by government. So once you don't have the case going on, there's no business going back to government to ask for your money, right?
You see, that is the weakest aspect of the whole argument, that you are not going to use public funds. In other words, I am a taxpayer. I went into an investment, and this is the problem. The government came to collapse the company where my investment is. Then government turns around and said, I'm not going to support you. Meanwhile, I see my other colleagues in other companies with similar problems, even theirs are heavier than mine. Then government is supporting them, or government supported them in 2020. And government says that, as for your case, dear, we will not do it. So straight away, you see that there is a motive behind it. Then two, government was only trying to shield its responsibility, but now it is hit with the reality. Nobody can convince us that government shouldn't pay this amount. Nobody can tell us that. As we speak, for the past 3 years, government had frozen the asset of Men's Gold. For 3 years. Why is the government holding on to those assets? What is he going to use those assets for? That is why we called on the government that let's sit down and see how you can pay us. Because the criminal prosecution is not going to yield anything. And from what they are saying, we have a position on that, but we will not give it out because we are not interested in the criminal prosecution. We are interested in how we can recoup our money, how we can retrieve our money. And we know that retrieving our money does not lie in the criminal prosecution. That is why we suggested to government in a petition that suspend the criminal prosecution. Let's sit down and use civil routes to resolve this matter. After that, you can go ahead and prosecute him if you so wish to do it. But it's like they think they are smarter, they are wiser, they have the power, so they want to do what they are doing, and now it's a global disgrace that they cannot find evidence to prosecute a case that you yourself sent to court. You understand? It's a shame that you yourself took this matter to court, and after 3 years, after dancing palongo around this thing in court, you come back and tell us that you do not have evidence. What a shame. And you were born to this thing should proceed out of your mouth.
But let's be fair. At least the Attorney General hasn't spoken on the matter. Are you not having hopes that something positive
I'm
will
telling
happen
you
in the coming
that
days?
Men's Gold customers were in the Attorney General's department just a couple of weeks ago and were given the same information. You understand? But when you check on my Twitter handle, I've even posted it there. We're given the same information that this is what is happening. And we have already said that. About the last time we had this total recall, remember I said that our checks at the Attorney General Department shows that there's no commitment. We have done several programs with your department here that government is not showing commitment to the prosecution of this case. So what she has said there, it is not a new thing to us, but it's now exposing them to the public that what these customers have been saying right from day one, that government is not committed to prosecute number one, it's a reality.
Yeah, but
now the cat is let out of the bag.
But you know that anytime you enter into a litigation or whatever it is,
let me tell you something.
There is supposed,
just
hold on, there's supposed to be an outcome at the end of the day because the judge will sit on the case, look at the evidence, and then put out his or a judgment.
You are taking my mind to this court. It's a
but I'm not asking you. The point is, there is
that my customers
there is the possible outcome that if you take a frivolous case before the court will definitely reject the charges. So what's required of the investigators or the prosecutors is to provide adequate evidence just to back the claims.
Do you know that the investigators, they were sent there on our behalf? Do you know that? Do you know that we asked them to work on our behalf? So I am the employer. I told you to do this particular work. Then I come back and tell you that the route you are using is wrong. Come back. But because of arrogance and because of deliberate conspiracy with NAM1,
I mean, you have to be fair because you don't have any evidence.
You are talking about fair here.
Yeah, but you don't have any evidence
if there is fairness,
you'd have to retract that because I'm not sure you have. I'm not sure you have evidence to back what you're saying.
Evidence that they are.
Yeah, you don't have that.
Oh,
that evidence.
What evidence do you need again? This is the evidence. This is it. A matter that you can resolve by sitting around the table. You said, I'm going to court because they believe that when they come to the media and spew this poisonous, venomous thing out there, people will buy into it. And now that is a national disgrace. So calm down. Listen, calm down from your high horses and let's sit around the table. Or better still, there is a motion in Parliament. The right thing for the Attorney General of the Republic of Ghana, together with the Finance Minister, to do is to go to the people representative and ask them for wisdom and direction. And they will direct you that this Men's Gold matter, it should be solved. And the parliamentary procedure could be used to resolve the matter. That is the end of it, to stop people from dying.
Justice Abdullahi, the issue about the weight the comments from Tiwa Dankwa will carry comes into play. We've not heard from the Attorney General. We've not heard him communicate the official position. That's the legal advisor to government on this. Would you expect that the Attorney General makes a public pronouncement on what the future holds for this case? Kindly unmute for me.
Can you please repeat that?
I was just talking about the weight this statement is carrying, that what we're hearing from Mami Tiwa Dankwa. Between that and that of the Attorney General, we know that there's obviously a legal implication when we have the Attorney General officially make pronouncements on the matter. That's a legal advisor to government. So what's your expectation of the Attorney General in terms of bringing finality to this case, so at least we know what the future holds?
I strongly would recommend my good friend, the Attorney General, to take up this matter. I believe that his office can adequately deal with this. If Yoko is not willing to do it on the basis of what Mamitiwa is saying, because I do not think that it is such an impossible task to get a successful prosecution of this case. I strongly believe there are sufficient evidence and there are sufficient laws available with which a conviction can easily be secured. I do not in any way support her position. I think her position is too weak to say that there are no sufficient evidence or sufficient laws. I do not subscribe to that at all. On the contrary, I think there are more than enough evidence that would secure a successful conviction if that is the objective of what she intends doing. And if she's not willing, or for whatever reason, because of the time factor, the office is not willing to prosecute it, I think a different office can take up the prosecution, which is the AG, because it's indeed their primary office in charge of these matters. And so I believe that if they take it up, they will be able to finish with this case. Within less than a year, they should be able to finish with this one. Because I do not see the extra difficulty that has actually led to the 5 years or thereabouts waiting period just to complete the prosecution. I sometimes, some of these cases lend credence to the bad reputation of our judicial system, because seriously, this case shouldn't have lasted, run this long, and this commentary is clearly not a kind of commentary that I expected.
Okay, but just for the purposes of emphasis, you are insisting that there is ample evidence. You talk about partly the fact that there are about thousands of clients of Men's Gold out there who the Yoko boss could rely on in terms of prosecuting this case. Beyond that, what more evidence do we have to suggest and to back the claims being made that, well, indeed, there was fraud?
Indeed, the easiest part is in the investigation that they conducted. You see, the police will tell you they conducted the investigation. Now, if you tell me you conducted investigations into the activities of the organization, remember, you've frozen the assets of the company, you've literally collapsed the company. There is a basis for doing that. You didn't do that out of fluke. You didn't do that based on the public outcry. You did that on the basis of your belief that the law had been breached. Now, that law alone, assuming this was not simply an attempt to collapse somebody else's successful company, clearly that law alone should be enough for you to be able to make the next step forward. Now, in addition to that, if you tell me you conducted an investigation, clearly that investigation should have unraveled some information, something else other than the complaint that the victims gave you at the time of presenting their evidence or facts before you. And those information would be sufficient to sustain the continuous freezing of the assets of the company. Now, those same information would be enough, I believe, with in addition to the evidence that the victims will be providing, to sustain conviction. Because it is these two information, one from the general public, the other from the documents that the general public will provide, then the documents that you will also uncover during the investigation, and the other information and bits and pieces of information that sometimes even the workers and the directors will be giving you, because they will disclose their modus operandi. Now, when they disclose their modus operandi, they would also disclose where the investments were actually made, who took the monies, where the monies were taken to, the business that the monies were being used for, the sustainability or otherwise of those monies and businesses.
Now, Nam1, for instance, you've heard from Nam1, and this is not the first time he's spoken about this. He says, just revoke that directive of freezing my assets. With your help, I'll be able to retrieve the locked up investments. And he said that as part of the justifications for why customers are not receiving their locked up investments. So that goes against whatever it is that the prosecutors are saying.
On the contrary, I think it doesn't. I think that is coming from a logical angle that clearly he does not have the resources at the back of his...
Logic will be applied in the course of law, right? You would do that. It's clear.
You're not getting my point. Let me finish with the point I'm making. So he is trying to save his skin by saying, of course, you've frozen my assets, my investments and everything else. If I had access to it, I should be able to pay some of these persons off. Clearly, there's no way, from the state's angle, there's no way the assets and the monies that have been locked up presently will be sufficient enough to pay off all the victims at this moment. But it would definitely be enough to pay some persons. Because if you ask lawyers who handle some of these matters against the company, most of the lawyers have judgment debts running into millions. There is no way, absolutely no way, from where I stand, that the judgment debts alone can be covered by the assets that have been frozen. Because the assets that are frozen, it is about 20 assets. And the value of those assets put together will not be enough to pay off even the judgment debts. I doubt it. And so clearly the state comes from this angle that if the assets, the frozen assets will not be enough, then the argument that it is because of the frozen nature of the assets that we've not been able to pay your victims or customers is clearly a bogus one. And so we are not playing that game with you. So if you indeed have the monies elsewhere, you have to bring those monies. So this is from the state's angle. But the problem is that the state can liquidate these assets and reduce the pressures on the victims. That is the difficulty that I do not understand why the state is not taking up that particular decision. And guess what? Assuming the state fears a breach of the law, the man had already made that proposal. That is number one, had already made that proposal that if you defreeze it, I will use it to pay. So there can be a collaborative effort between the state and number one.
Okay, so let's talk about
to do that particular
right.
To undertake that exercise, to pay everybody, let's as a benchmark, everybody gets the same amount from the assets that are liquidated. Then we move on from the rest, because that one will definitely reduce the stress on investors.
Okay, but then let's talk about the alternative. Yoko now is saying, well, we don't have enough evidence. There are other state agencies that could look into this case, right? Just charging from the aspect of the locals. I mean, talk about the Office of the Special Prosecutor. There are some other independent bodies which, I mean, arguably could go and look into this case, even if Yoko is disinterested. So what's your expectation of some of these organizations? For instance, the Office of the Special Prosecutor.
The Office of the Special Prosecutor, if we check the law, may not have enough jurisdiction to entertain this matter, because it is, of course, unless the evidence shows that there were some activities of corruption or corruption-related issues, it may not even necessarily have jurisdiction over this matter. Desirable as you may wish them to take up this case. Similarly, I doubt that Shraj may be able to take up this matter because of the nature of Shraj's setup as well. And so what it means is that you have Yoko and indeed the Attorney General's office, which will have that kind of overall advantage to be able to have a good and successful prosecution if they indeed intend to do so. Of course, the Attorney General can outsource this to private lawyers to do on their behalf. Of course, with sufficient information being provided. Look, this is always a problem. Somebody has already conducted an investigation, enough or otherwise. Those informations have been locked up somewhere. They have not been made available to other institutions which may have comparative advantage in the prosecution of the matter. And so naturally, it stifles the entire progress that one would expect to see in the prosecution of the case.
So basically, you're telling investors to just give up?
Investors, of course, do have a second option. Some of them did, as I said earlier, they took several actions. We handled several of those ones. But the problem is that because the state has frozen the assets, the moment you attempt executing, levying the judgment on these assets, they come saying that, well, because there are a lot more other people involved, we cannot allow you to take everything. We have to wait until we are done. But unfortunately, they are not making any progress. And so everybody's playing the wait and see attitude, hoping that something would come up. And these, and the conduct and the posture of the state is not helping. There are several people with judgments running into millions of Ghana cedis. And I'm sure if these judgments keep attracting interest, one person may probably be able to swallow the whole assets that have been frozen as of now.
Anyway, it's looking bad, but we need to go. Let's talk about the way forward. Yes, Fred?
This is a purely state matter.
Right.
And I don't want us to make it a private matter. Where we've gotten to, I keep on saying it. The very day that government went in to shut down men's goods, the responsibility of paying the customers shifted from the company to the state. And that ought to be communicated very well. And that is where we are now. because you went there to close down the company. So it means you are taking over the asset and the liabilities of the company. So like council is saying, it's high time, liquidate the asset. But we don't think that where we've gotten to, merely liquidating the asset will resolve the issue. That is why we have a government. That is what responsible government do. Come in, liquidate the asset, then you top up because we make up the state. That's why we are saying that look into parliament. There is a precedent. That is how they resolve the DKM issue. They move the motion, parliament or the people of Ghana give the government at the time the right to go into the men's good matter. Because as we speak legally, government has demonstrated that it is responsible. That is why, one, it went to court for an order to sell the asset. And as we speak, we have evidence that those assets have been sold. So government has even clearly demonstrated that we are responsible. You kept the asset for the past 3 years. 183 people have died. Even that one is a great offense. But for now, what we can all do to help us is that let's look at how you can do it. If you need a law or if you need a backing from Parliament, they are ready to assist.
Okay, Fred, we need to go. What's the way forward?
The way forward is that for us, I think now the cat is let out of the bag. What is happening is that government should drop or should suspend. We are not saying they shouldn't prosecute. They should suspend the criminal prosecution. Look to our A4 sheet papers that we presented to them in 2019. There are some nuggets of wisdom there. They should heed to what we said and come back to the table. We are ready. Because time is running out. Time is really running out. And they are making us more angrier. And we have the last thing that we'll do if we should kick in that thing.
What's that? Give me an idea.
Worse for this country.
So give me an idea of what you intend.
Because I don't see why I am a nurse, I am a doctor, and the people who are causing and killing my people will come to me and I'll give them free medicine. I'm just giving you a hint.
Okay. Well, he's almost walking off, but that's Fred Forson speaks for the aggrieved customers of Men's Gold. We'll still keep an eye on this and give you some updates in our subsequent bulletins. But for now, faith, prayer, and hard work is on the list of President Akufo-Addo in dealing with our economic challenges. We'll tell you more about prayer, appropriate policies, and hard work, as well as determination. Those are very high on President Akufo-Addo's checklist as he leads his team to restore the Ghanaian economy to sound footing. A depreciating cedi and also the free fall of inflation have combined to bring untold hardship to Ghanaians, and the end is far from sight. Well, JoyNews is learning that Cabinet is meeting to analyze the latest interventions announced by the Bank of Ghana, which amongst others increased the policy rate from 19 to 22%, the biggest increase since 2002. Well, President Akufo-Addo has been speaking about measures being taken to cushion Ghanaians.
As President of the Republic, my goal since coming into office has been to help improve the standards of living of the Ghanaian people. Every policy initiative, whether it is the free senior high school policy, the program for planting for food and jobs, or the One District, One Factory initiative, has been implemented with the well-being of the Ghanaian at heart. Before the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, our nation had one of the fastest growing economies, not just in Africa, but across the world. However, the ravages of the pandemic, worsened by the effects of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, have led to spiraling freight charges, rising fuel costs, high food prices, steep inflationary spikes, and widespread business failure. I am fully aware these are very difficult times for us in Ghana, just as they are for most people in the world, cold comfort as that may be. However, just as I said recently, the Akufo-Addo government has not thrown its hands up in despair at this pernicious development. We're determined to bring relief to the Ghanaian people and return the economy back to the high rates of growth that characterized the management of our economy in the 3 years preceding the COVID outbreak in 2020. The approach to the International Monetary Fund is an important step in the short run towards that goal. Other steps will be taken, in particular, to deal with the unacceptable depreciation of the cedi, reining in inflation by bringing down food prices is a major preoccupation of the government. This season's emerging successful harvest will assist us achieve this objective, together with other policies that are being put in place. We will also continue with our program for the expansion and modernization of our educational system to create a 21st century workforce. The systematic reform of our healthcare system to ensure a resilient, robust healthcare delivery system. The realization of the agenda of industrial transformation that holds the key to our future prosperity. The enhancement of agricultural productivity to guarantee the prospects of food security. The execution of the comprehensive infrastructural development plan in roads and railways. The conclusion of the digitalization process to obtain the full benefits of the fourth industrial revolution. The protection and greening of our environment to address climate change. The empowerment of the security services to ensure the peace, security, and stability of the state and nation. The establishment of a free and just society where entrepreneurship and individual initiative are the sources of wealth creation, with a strong social safety net for the marginalized and disadvantaged.
Also, that's President Akufo-Addo speaking there. Meanwhile, a pressure group, Arise Ghana, earlier today made some recommendations to the president. Part of it is that they're mounting pressure on the president to dismiss Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta and to bring on board someone with fresh ideas to tackle the economic challenges.
Some demands. We demand that government should immediately suspend this utility tariff increment. We are giving government 48 hours ultimatum to suspend the tariff adjustment or face the wrath of Arise Ghana and Ghanaians.
Arise, save Ghana now. Arise, save Ghana now.
You heard it. We are giving government 48 hours to suspend the tariff increment. Otherwise, they will face the wrath of Arise Ghana and Ghanaians. 2, we are once again reiterating our calls for the termination of the appointment of the Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, who in this crisis has abandoned his office and is in the United States of America seeking medical care. This finance minister, who doesn't even have faith in our medical system, cannot be allowed to stay in office with obvious physical incapacity and driving Ghana's economy into unprecedented crisis. Clearly, the finance minister has infected his ill health on the Ghanaian economy, and the Ghanaian economy is sick as well.
Arise, save Ghana now. Arise, save Ghana now.
Convener of the group, Bernard Mona there. Let me bring in my guest, former Deputy Finance Minister Kweku Ricketts-Hagan. He's joining us via Zoom. Mensa Thompson is Executive Director for the Alliance for Social Equity and Public Accountability. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. I'll come to you shortly, Mensa Thompson, but let me start off with you, Honourable Ricketts-Hagan. So the calls for the dismissal of the Finance Minister, we've heard that as well from your side in Parliament. I mean, what practical solution would that bring to the Ghanaian economy if we have Ken Ofori-Atta dismissed from office?
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon to our viewers, and good afternoon to my colleague panelist who is in your studio. I think this call has been going on for quite some time, and it is important in a sense that we have gotten to a stage where we need fresh ideas. Quite apart from that, is dismissal or leaving office will also signal some confidence in the market and in the Ghanaian economy itself. He is a beleaguered finance minister, and I think he's up to his neck, obviously, with a job. He's done well in the private sector for himself, but it looks as he has failed as in managing public finances. And it's just someone who doesn't believe in the IMF, who resisted that we will not return to the IMF. And he said that only a fool doesn't change his mind. But he doesn't believe in the IMF. He accepts many things against the IMF. This is not a man that you want him to lead Ghanaian delegation or Ghanaian finance expert to negotiate with the IMF, an institution that he basically doesn't believe in. And I think the feeling is mutual. The IMF probably don't trust him, that he will be the one who will be able to execute whatever policies that are put in place to put Ghana back on track and restore economic
I'm being forced at this moment to remind you of the statement we received from the presidency on this. It was a clear instruction to Ken Ofori-Atta to implement policies leading us back to the International Monetary Fund. It's a case of submitting your opinion to that of the ultimates, the President of the Republic.
Well, the issue is not about who instructed who to go to the IMF. The issue is about the one that you have instructed to go to the IMF. Does he believe in what you have instructed him to do? And clearly he doesn't. So it is not like he is just the messenger and therefore he has no responsibility. You want to send your best team to the pitch. Okay, you don't want to send players who don't actually believe in the team. So it doesn't matter what instructions the coach has given, but it is clear to Ghanaians and to the International Finance Committee and to the IMF that the man who is leading the Ghanaian delegation does not actually believe in the program. And this is where the challenge is. It's not who sent him. The man who is coming to sit down and negotiate. And don't forget that the financial negotiation will be done by the finance minister on the authority of the president. So the nitty-gritty of the discussion is going to be held by the finance minister, who is supposed to be knowledgeable and expert in that, not the president. But this is a guy who doesn't actually believe in it. He doesn't believe in what he's been sent to do. What result, Blessed, do you expect Ken Ofori-Atta to come back on?
Yeah, but we've had some arguments as well. The issue about the alternatives and what options are available to the president now, talking about, for instance, the background of Ken Ofori-Atta and what he brings on board. This is a fine investment banker whose work dates back into parts of your administration as well, you agree? So he has the expertise in terms of finance, right?
Let me share some experience with you. I come from the same background as Ken Ofori-Atta, investment banking background. I came into public service, and I have to learn very quickly to realize that things are done differently. And where in the private sector or the investment banking, where you use other people's money like shareholders to do things and then call for more money when you need it. It's not the same in the private sector. Your shareholders are the taxpayers of Ghana, and you are supposed to be accountable to them, not friends and family, which is the case in, some boutique investment banking and all that. So I said earlier that he's done very well for himself. He's been a good investment banker. I mean, from what we have heard and from his record, but he has failed abysmally as somebody to manage the public place of this country.
Anyway,
and that's why he has to go.
Right. At this point,
I understand his orientation, but he's not been able to bring himself up to speed to understand how managing public financing is. And that is why I drew the analogy with myself, having come from a similar background and having to quickly orientate myself to understand that things will work differently. No, it's the same finance that we are dealing with.
Interesting points you're making there. I want to bring in Mensa Thompson at this point because Asepa is also belonging to that alliance of Arise Ghana. You're issuing an ultimatum, first of all, to government on the issue of the utility tariffs. We know that there's an adjustment formula that the PURC works with. It will be next to impossible for government to change anything about the figures.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to your cherished viewers. I think we should forget about the PRC here. The issue that we're confronted with now, we are in a crisis, and we cannot continue to pretend as if we are in normal situations, and so normal actions of regulatory agencies should go on. The crisis that we're confronted with requires certain, urgent actions from government, and a mere straitjacket increment in utility tariffs will not cut the difficulties in the system. And I think that the passive nature of this government and its, the general outlook of the regime, and how they're approaching the current crisis confronting the people of this country is making people lose further confidence in the system. You see, water and electricity, apart from its serving as basic social amenities for the household, is a huge input in production. Now, in the last 3 months, inflation is over the roof. Businesses are already struggling. The exchange rate is under severe pressure, and factors of production has almost quadrupled in the last quarter. Now, what you're saying is that so the business are already struggling. The household are already also struggling to even survive, afford 3 square meters a day. Businesses are struggling to break even. Now, when you compile further additional tariff on them, what you're saying is that automatically these people are going to default.
Why are you making it look as though the factors accounting for the increment in the utility is simply as a result of government's inaction or actions? Because we've read from the press release that the PRC released ahead of the increment in the tariffs. They talk about some externalities, which government has also been rehashing, the issue about the COVID-19 and the Russian-Ukraine war. It's been spelled out clearly in the statement from the PRC. So why are you making this look as though it's solely a problem of the government?
Is the Russian-Ukraine war responsible for the 1.5 billion debt we are paying every year in the energy sector? Is the Russian-Ukraine war contributing to that debt? The wastages in the system, in our water production, we see pipes and tanks leaking all over the places. Is that the cause of the Russian-Ukrainian war? You see, if you don't address the inefficiencies in the system and you think that you're going to be filling your tank, which is already bust, what you're doing is that you'll fail and fail it will never get full. You see, government should go back and address the inefficiencies in the system. The corruption and the mismanagement in the power sector is what is contributing to this huge debt on the books of these utility producers. Now, after you've mismanaged the utility sector, you can't come back to the poor teacher or the poor farmer or the poor trader to pay more so you can service those debts. And so, we are saying is that is even going to be a disincentive, because what is going to happen now is that because the tariffs are high, the businesses, are going to default. They can't pay. And if they're forced to pay, they are going to make losses. And when losses accrue, what is going to happen? They're going to be out of business. So what is going to do is that this hike in utility tariff is going to push people who are in production and manufacturing to now leave the production and manufacturing because cost of production is at our unsustainable levels. Let me end there. And then resort to importation. And when they do that, it is also further going to put pressure on your already stressful currency. Again, the household also because the people can't buy food to eat. Can they pay electricity bills? So what is going to happen is that they are also going to default and then further sink the country into further debt hole.
But in the end...
So government is rather shooting itself in the foot. You see, government must look at what has brought us here. What has brought us into this economic crisis is that the government has failed to generate enough revenue over time to meet its short-term and long-term obligations. And so it has consistently borrowed recklessly to pay public sector workers or even pay or even servicing debt. And when that happens, you find yourself in the debt hole. And that solution to the problem is find innovative means of stimulating the growth of the economy, which will encourage...
The last time we saw an adjustment to the utility rate was way back in 2019, if you want to put it aside. If that's the case, clearly looking at the breach or the delayed announcement of an upward increment, and just look at the rates, for instance, the utility companies were asking for 148 for ECG and over 300% for Ghana Water Company. So if they are getting less than even 10% of that demand, it tells you that we should have been paying more, realistically.
Why are the utility companies asking for that much? It's because of the debt in the sector. They are not asking that because of the factors of production. They are asking for that much because there's so much debt. And electricity, the power producers have the right to come and tell us to pay more for electricity. What happened to ESLA? By now, ESLA should have paid all the debt that are accrued in the energy sector. By today, we are still servicing debt, at least 1.5 billion in the energy sector. Okay? And so, you see, you can't go and mismanage the economy and then come back to us to
Okay, so let's talk about the ultimatum you're giving to government and what we are to expect. What's the worst and what may happen?
Yes, so I mean, there are two ultimatums that we are giving to the president. One is to immediately call for the suspension of this utility tariff increment, the 21.55 for power and then 27.15 for electricity.
Right.
It must be suspended now. The people of Ghana are not ready for this increment. At this time where food inflation has pushed everything, people are overburdened, people cannot afford 3 square meals a day. That aside. Apart from that, we are calling for the immediate termination of the appointment of Ken Ofori-Atta, the finance minister. See, you can't drive an economy into this ditch. There's nowhere in the world that you drive an economy into this ditch and still be in charge of the steering wheel. Apart from that, we are not just calling for his termination of appointment. We are calling also for his immediate arrest. And we understand that...
You are asking that we arrest the finance minister?
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
Mensah Thompson, I mean, this
please.
This is not...
Oh, no, but why?
This is not fair. You're asking that we arrest the finance minister on what basis?
So allow me to give you the basis.
Okay. I mean, there's no prejudice here, but I mean, that's an extreme call.
No, it's not an extreme. No, it's not. That call is not on you. We are making our call. You may disagree with us.
You want Ken Ofori-Atta to be arrested?
And we know that he's out of the country. And we are calling on all the authorities that the moment Ken Ofori-Atta steps foot into this country, he should be picked up at the airport and be made to face criminal prosecution.
Why?
For the destruction he's done to the Ghanaian economy. That he's deliberately driven this country into a debt hole.
I mean,
and continue to borrow. Honestly, allow me.
That's what's criminal in nature about running an economy.
Brother, hold on. You deliberately drive an economy into a debt hole and you go on a borrowing spree with your private company. And anytime you borrow, your private company benefits from the fiscal recklessness you've driven this country in. Tell me which country in this world Ken Ofori-Atta will be walking away free? Which country?
What evidence do you have? What evidence do you have?
He went to Parliament.
Suggest that
he went to Parliament.
His company.
They asked him how much does his company data bank made.
But is it lawful? Is it lawful? You're not taking away, for instance, his right to property ownership. You agree?
You and I cannot.
Yeah, I mean, but to be fair, there's no court indicting, for instance, his firms, his private interests as engaging in any illegal acts.
For somebody's arrest, you are not condemning. There are legal processes.
Right.
Ken Ofori-Atta, if he's arrested to face criminal prosecution, will have his day in court. All these things you are saying is a job for his lawyer, unless you want to be his lawyer.
I don't intend to be his lawyer.
Then allow some of us.
And realistically speaking, you know that, for instance, the president or perhaps the Ghana Police Service may not even heed your call because there's no grounds.
That's why I said that.
I guess.
No, please. That is not for you to say that there's no ground.
What's the grounds? I mean, just lay...
Conflict of interest is not a crime in the Constitution. Go and read the 1992.
You're sure that's the point on which
if you're borrowing and using your private company to borrow and making profit out of the fiscal recklessness you have thrown this country into, you are telling us it's not a crime.
Have you petitioned the IGP on that?
So hold on. That is what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. We are calling for his arrest. Mm-hmm. If the arrest is not done, arrest Ghana, we are going to take steps.
We know that he's out of the country seeking medical care. We are praying for him, that God should heal him and bring him back to this country. We need him alive because he needs to answer for his crimes. He needs to answer for all the pain he's caused. You see, all of us today, PRC is asking us to pay more for power, more for water, because of the recklessness of Ken Ofori-Atta. And so all this pain, the guy must answer for it. And so we are waiting for him patiently. As soon as he arrives at the airport, he must be picked up by the authorities. He must be made to face criminal prosecution for all his fiscal recklessness.
Okay.
And the death bench is driven.
Let me bring in Ricky Tegan at this point. We've heard the former President John Mahama talk about a reshuffle. At least that would be an opportunity to bring in some fresh brains to deal with the matter. The president has given his verdict on the matter, so why worry over it? He says we don't need a reshuffle. After all, those within the party even asking for it simply need jobs. So he's not going to do any reshuffle. So why worry over this? Why not wait at least till 2024 and then we'll see what the Ghanaian people will say about his tenure? Kindly unmute for me, Mr. Hagan, so I can hear the points you're making.
Sorry about that. Yeah. Well, it's unfortunate about the president's position, on this matter. But at the end of the day, he's the president, and then, he appoints or disappoints. But I think the former president, John Mahama's point was spot on. That, look, if you are using managers of the economy who are not delivering, then maybe it's about time, after having stayed there for 5 years or more, it's about time that you refresh your team, or you change these managers and bring in other people who may come with fresh legs, to carry on the job. I use the football analogy that if you have players, they may be your star players, but on the day if you are not playing well and you are not getting the result, then it will make sense for the coach to try and bring other people in and see if they can restart whatever the plan is. So that is what we are calling for. But then if the president is not interested and thinks that these same people are the ones who have to continue, don't forget that at the end of the day, Ghana is for all of us. Whatever is happening, the hardships that we're feeling in this country is being felt by everyone, probably except a few. And that is the president and his cronies. But the general, or Ghanaians are generally feeling the hardship. So if you are the one in charge and you are being advised that, look, you need to refresh your team or bring people in, to try and see if we can arrest this situation and put us, on the path of, or on the good part of economic recovery. And he said, no, you don't see. And the people who are advising you, even within your own party, are people who are looking for jobs, and that the rest of us are also have some other interests. Then at the end of the day, when things hit the ceiling, it's going to hit it for all of us.
In the end, you're partly to be blamed for, what we're witnessing today. You are in Parliament. You are MPs. You've been criticized as the minority of providing weak opposition to some of these excesses we're witnessing in government.
Not at all. We have been challenging a lot of things, and I'm sure you've seen how this particular parliament. I don't think you've seen any parliament here in Ghana that you have a very strong opposition. And then, of course, our numbers also have. You would never have heard of the e-levy issue had it not been the structure of parliament that we have at the moment. Together with a number of things. The issue that the gentleman raised about the being a transaction advisor to the borrowing that we do. I am the one who raised that issue in parliament. I called in the finance minister to ask the finance minister that question. And I think one of our ladies, MP, also followed up. I had put a paper together for my leadership about how much money Ken Ofori-Atta and his companies and the other finance minister, who is now a minister of state, Edu Boahen, are making with their companies and cronies in each time that they go out there to borrow money for Ghana. And so the motive for the overborrowing that we have done is also as a result of people having interest in earning money while Ghana, builds up debt. And if not for nothing, it is a conflict of interest. And I think that it's a matter that should be taken further and probably get the companies to refund the money.
And for you in minority, what's inspiring the what we may call the fixation on Ken Ofori-Atta as an individual? Why not take the government to account on this?
He is the finance minister. He's supposed to be the head of the economic management team. You know, I mean, I don't know where Dr. Bawumia is these days, but he is the finance minister. You have the economic management team, which is a much broader.
Chaired by the vice president.
Yes, but in terms of the day-to-day management of the economy, that's not done by the vice president. It's done by the finance minister. He is the one who goes out there and contract all these Eurobond. He's the one who implements, you know, some of these policies or pay for some of these policies that have failed. And this is a person who is leading an IMF, you know, a program. It just doesn't add up.
Yes, and then back to my basics about why you're not patient enough as the minority and by extension the National Democratic Congress just to wait for the 2024 elections. If indeed Ghanaians are not satisfied with the NPP, they may be kicked out of government. So why not patient? Just wait and see, right?
But with the way how difficult things are, you know, by that time we will all probably be dead.
Oh, we'll be dead if we wait for the next elections?
What is happening at the moment, if care is not taken, Ghana will very soon default on its debts, the economy will come to a halt, and the country will collapse, just like Sri Lanka. It's only a matter of time. And there is no plan in sight that these issues are being addressed. When the media review was done, there was nothing in the media review to suggest that the government actually understands the imminent danger that we face and the immediate challenges that we need to address as managers of the economy. And that is quite troubling. At the moment, we have Bank of Ghana. Why do you think Bank of Ghana is all doing this within the last 5 months, 750 basis points? Why the problem that we were facing as a result of high inflation, the bulk of it is actually to do with fiscal policies. So the Bank of Ghana, not that the Bank of Ghana is not the finance minister, but the Bank of Ghana is trying to use, or the governor is trying to use monetary policy to address fiscal challenges. And that is the problem, which means that the fiscal guys are just relaxing. We are psychologically looking at high inflation as a Bank of Ghana responsibility because they target inflation as a result of, you know, part of their work in stabilizing the finances of this country.
All right, then.
But the problem that is being faced at the moment, the inflation we are experiencing, as I've been saying time and time again, is not a demand inflation. It's not coming as a result of high wages. It's not coming as a result of companies recovering from COVID. It's a supply side, cost, and some external. And we have overused the Ukraine-Russian war and the COVID as part of the challenges that we are facing. It's not for anything at all. These things, COVID and Ukraine war, has just exposed how fragile Ghana's economy is and how it's been mismanaged, and all the inefficiencies that Mr. Thompson talked about.
And I want us at this point. And I want us at this point
to do with the corruption, the inefficiencies, the wastages, the lavish expenditure, and all the laws.
Okay, let's look at the way forward now, and I'll start off with Mensa Thompson on this. Where do we go from here?
Well, you see, the people who are in charge of the crisis seem not to understand, one, the extent of the crisis. They don't even know the problem they're dealing with, and so they are injecting the patient, i.e. the Ghanaian economy, the wrong medications. And like you alluded to, the governor of the central bank trying to use monetary policy to address a fiscal challenge. Clearly, you could see that these people are lost. And so when we ask people like Ken Ofori-Atta to step aside, we are not targeting Ken Ofori-Atta as an individual. Nobody has any personal vendetta against Mr. Ofori-Atta. We want the right things to be done. The way forward is that government must, embark on an innovative fiscal consolidation. The fiscals of the economy is now totally even destroyed, so you can't even consolidate. We need to rebuild the fiscals. What do we do? You need to use expansionary fiscal policy tools
to incite growth in the economy. But government approach...
It's easier said than done.
No, you see, because the approach has always been contractionary fiscal policies, like this tariff increment. All these are contractionary approach to addressing the fiscal problem. You see, and I am an economist. I always say this. Taxes is a double-edged sword. You can use to grow the economy, you can use it to kill the economy. And so when you are introducing taxes or fiscal policies, you must think through it very carefully and see which area do I introduce taxes to show off growth, and which area do I use taxes to curtail growth and to curtail growth and encourage domestic
I'm not
production.
cutting you, but yesterday I recall speaking to Kabiru Kabiru on PM Express, who's one of the technical advisors at the Office of the President. He talks about the fact that for now, the immediate...
The President has technical advisors?
I mean, at the Office of the Vice President.
Really? There's people like that?
Well, let's leave that aside. The immediate focus...
and we're paying him?
The immediate focus, Mensa Thompson, of government is to try and bring down the prices of goods and services. So they're doing that through what we're seeing in the form of the policy rate approach. So if that comes down, we could look forward to dealing with some of these issues that you're raising.
The Vice President, it should tell you why our city is almost 12 cities. You think that the current problem, how to deal with the current problem, is going to attack prices? So what do? You want to introduce price ceiling or what? You see, when we tell you that the people who are handling the crisis do not themselves understand the crisis and they're injecting the wrong medication, you say we are doing propaganda. But you see, these are the things. This is the person advising the Vice President. So when the Vice President comes to talk, you should know that, it's total emptiness. You see, where is the problem coming from? What is the root of this economic crisis? Look for the root of the problem and start addressing the problem from the root. When you start cutting, doing haircuts and putting makeup, and this is the whole, makeup approach that has been used to manage the economy in the last 3 or 4 years. So all we are saying is that, one, the first thing the government needs to do is to admit, come out boldly and admit that it has mismanaged this economy, and it has driven the economy into a ditch, and apologize to Ghanaians that, look, we cannot solve the problem we have created. We don't have any ideas. So please, we are opening up for conversations. People with ideas should come forth, and we need a multi-dimensional, multi-party approach. Bring everybody around the table. We have people with fantastic ideas. I speak to several economics every day with brilliant ideas on how to revive this economy, to inject some confidence back into this economy. Right. We need to invite all of them around the table. Bring in new ideas and come up with a policy, the same policy that the NDC did with the century consensus. And you know that that century consensus is what gave birth to this program, to the IMF program, which was implemented up to 2018, which was extended by the government. We need that sort of approach to deal with the current crisis. That is all we need.
Okay then. Ricketts, for you, what will be your final words on this? Kindly unmute for me, sir.
Okay, so quickly, if you look at the problems that we are facing at the moment, there is a short to medium-term challenges that this country is facing. And then, of course, we have the long-term problems to do with the structure of Ghana's economy, which obviously, need to be addressed. But you need to be able to deal with the short-term to medium-term challenges before you go on to the long-term. What this government is doing is that they are trying to bulldoze their way through the medium to short-term challenges with long-term policies, which will be needed in the end, but some things need to happen before that is done. For instance, if you look at the level of debt right now, what we should do is to stop borrowing. First and foremost, we need to stop borrowing and look at how we can restructure our debt. We don't even need to wait for the IMF to get here. It looks as if we are waiting for IMF to start restructuring our debt. So that needs to happen immediately. And then the second thing that needs to happen is to address the currency problem. And the currency problem is linked with inflation. So first and foremost, the high fuel prices can be addressed. But obviously, they've just come back to Parliament to tell us, or the media review, that They now have a windfall from the oil, which is going to be used to finance the economy. Previously, they were telling us that they didn't have any windfall because Ghana is a net exporter of oil, which was actually not true. If you look at the balance sheet of the oil sector in Ghana, the balance sheet for crude oil is completely separate from the balance sheet of the finished product that we bring in, because we don't refine oil here to consume. So if you net it off that way, you'll be wrong. So if the windfall that we are getting, when prices were around 100 and now 90, can be used to subsidize the fuel. If we do that immediately, we'll be able to bring the inflation component of fuel and food down.
We need to go.
And once that is down, you wouldn't need the Bank of Ghana to continue with this.
We need to go. I'm afraid we don't have all of the time now. George Rikitsegan, former Deputy Finance Minister, joining us here on The Pulse. Mensa Thompson is the Executive Secretary, Director, I should say, of the Alliance for Social Equity and Public Accountability. Thank you all for joining us. The Art of Living, an India-based humanitarian organization led by the Gurudev Sri Ravi on the second day of the meeting here in Ghana has actually been dealing with some issues relating to meditation as part of the process of finding inner peace to true happiness. Now, as part of the visit, the organization will be opening some centers here in Ghana to alleviate the difficulties of people and what they face in their daily activities. Messi Edumwa has more in this report.
Your intuitive power becomes so strong, then you know exactly what you should do and what's going to happen to you.
Moments of quietness and peace as the ambassador of peace, Gurudev Sri Ravi Shankar, leads his audience to meditate with what he says are their inner beings. The Happiness 3.0 project is being spearheaded by an Indian-based humanitarian organization which aims at strengthening the mental health of people around the world. It began a tour of Ghana to engage and promote the well-being of people in these harsh economic times. Speaking at the second day of the Happiness 3.0 event in Accra, Gurudev Sri Ravi Shankar says the vision of the project is to create more happiness centers in Ghana to help alleviate sorrow.
I would like all of you to participate in creating happiness centers here in Ghana. You know, when you're hungry, there are restaurants in the corner, you go and eat. When you want to find some beautification, there are beauty parlor, right? And you want to do gym, there are gyms everywhere. But someone want to find happiness, they don't know where to go. So let us create happiness centers in 4 corners of Accra. And I would like all of you to participate. Happiness center will be where anyone can walk in any time, sit a few minutes, do some breathing techniques, relax, and go back happily.
The Indian High Commissioner to Ghana, His Excellency Sogah Rajaram, says through his tour, India is looking forward to revitalizing the sector of trade, renewable energy, health and education, and also strengthen the future economic growth.
Strengthen our partnership in terms of increased trade and investments. We would like to see that we become the substantial, developmental assistance partner of Ghana, expanding our assistance in the areas of of the priority of this country. You see the needs of the people here in terms of agriculture, rural development, small and medium businesses, renewable energy, irrigation and water, health and education, and especially the critical infrastructural needs. I think when we are celebrating our achievements in the last decades, we are looking for what we can do together with our friend Ghana in these prioritized areas. And I see a lot of synergies and opportunities in this regard. And also, if we see that the new areas of future economic growth and prosperity or development. These are innovation and knowledge based economy, and also the various opportunities which are coming out of the technological prowess and development. I think
Well, and that's all we have for you in this package of the polls. I am Blessed Sogah. Do log on to my Joy Online